Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. Hope you've all had a good week. I've had a very interesting week, just getting my head down, getting a lot of content done for my new program. Launch is going to be in the early October 2018. And if you are interested in growing your wealth, becoming empowered around your finances, and building sustainable wealth and a level of financial independence that you've kind of dreamed of, this program is going to be unmissable, so keep an eye out for that. Keep signed up to the newsletter. But thanks for coming back to the podcast. I've had a lot of great feedback, a lot of reviews week on week, and I was going to kind of talk about, this week I was going to touch on following on from kind of the investment bit and really just summing up how that intertwines with preparing for what we call a recession. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of leave that till next week, because I got a really good question in email from someone who's actually following this podcast. So if you've kept up to date with all the podcasts, you've kind of been on this journey of controlling your finances, structuring in a way that's going to kind of allow you to automate your journey to financial freedom, if you like, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. And I had a really great email in from one of the listeners. So first of all, I want to kind of start off by reading you the question in the email. I'm going to read the email out, and then I'm going to kind of give you my views and my thoughts and my answers on the email. So here goes. The question was, or the email said this: "Hi Jason, I read your newsletter on accountability and I loved it. I'm in the middle of starting a business and these emails really help me to stay focused and on track. I've had to stop doing some of the things I was doing, like going out every weekend and spending money on luxuries, but I've never been so driven and excited in my life." So obviously in my previous podcast, I've mentioned about how I had to kind of sacrifice all that kind of stuff when I was a bit younger as well. And just by kind of getting that belief transference from this podcast and from the newsletters, this particular person's doing the same and they're feeling good about themselves. So they went on to say, "Last week, I went out for a networking event and in the evening, and I posted a picture on social media of the event. And one of my friends messaged me saying, 'Clearly you went out last night. I thought you just stayed in now.' And they said, the tone of the message screamed to me that they were being funny, and I could tell they didn't have my best intention at heart. The next day, they said, 'You should enjoy life whilst you're young.' So they said, why is it that people act this way? Why can't people just be happy for the ones that want to do better for themselves? Should I make time for my friends whilst trying to get my business off the ground? I'm not so sure I can juggle both at the moment." So that is got to be a very common question, a very common challenge, where someone decides to go and work on themselves, whether that be getting their finances in order, growing their wealth, building a business, getting fit even. I've spoken about that on the podcast as well. And it's very common. And I've spoken about it many times before. In fact, I remember specifically in, I think it was newsletter 3, very early on, I've spoken about kind of humans not wanting to feel inadequate and when you're striving to do more. And I also spoke about that in a podcast. I think it was number 4, maybe, or number 6. And it was kind of, the title was kind of along the lines of, people don't want you to succeed or something like that. And when you're starting a business or launching a new product or learning a new skill, whatever it is, it requires maximum force to get it off the ground. It's a bit like a rocket. It's a bit like a rocket ship. And when you're in this situation of building something, the likeness is, if you're building a business, you're doing something that's going to help others. You're going to serve the economy or the marketplace in a way that's going to allow you to generate potentially life-changing income for you and your family, and you're going to be helping others at the same time. So my answer to this kind of predicament is always be selfish first. And I know that here's where people are going to be like, oh, what do you mean be selfish? I've always been told to be not selfish or put others first. So bear with me, because I 100% believe that having a wealthy life is about being able to experience life to the fullest whilst being in a position to help and support family, friends, community, and whoever else you choose to, right? And people make the mistake of being far too altruistic, very, very overly giving before they're in a position to do so. I've seen people literally trying to set up charities or non-profit organisations when they can barely afford to pay their own bills. And it's usually the same people that when you speak to them, they've got this kind of extreme view against any kind of narcissistic tendencies, any narcissism at all. They're like, no, you must give before you receive, you must put others first. Now, most of the time, people believe that it's better to give than to receive. It's just kind of what we've been told, and a lot of the time, it's indoctrinated through, our parents, our grandparents, maybe religions. You must give before you receive. It's kind of shunned upon to put yourself first. Now, I know people who are extremely narcissistic, and I'm sure you guys do too. I'm sure you've got someone in your head extremely narcissistic, and it's almost like whatever they promote is kind of, without them even knowing it, because they're so narcissistic, that it makes it even more narcissistic. And I know people who are overly altruistic. They're always putting other people first. But the thing is, both extremes can be destructive or lead to an unempowered life. Both of them. Both of those. If you're overly narcissistic, you'll have a destructive and unempowered life. And if you're overly altruistic, you'll have a destructive and unempowered life. The key is always to have the balance between the two, but you definitely need the two. And I actually believe that when you're in the early stages of self-development, or you're building a business, or you're growing your wealth, you have to be more narcissistic in the early stages. And then what that does, it allows you to be more selfless down the line. I've seen the most narcissistic people turn out to be the most giving philanthropists I've ever met. And on the same hand, I've seen the most giving people turn out to be very selfish in terms of what they can offer to the world and who they can support, and whether they can provide for their family or their community or their friends. And in fact, I'll give you an example, but before I do that, I'll just explain what I mean by the extreme traits. So someone who's extremely narcissistic, that person is always out for themselves. They want to get the money, get the attention, get the fame, get the fortune, and it's all about them, right? Now, the problem with the extreme narcissist is they spend so much time focusing on them that they don't serve other people. And although they want to chase the money and the fame, they're usually neglecting of others, and they're unable to attract real wealth because they're not serving other people. They just, they discard other people's opinions. They're not really looking at the marketplace. They're not looking at other people. They're not taking into consideration other people's feelings and needs and wants. And because they're so narcissistic, the thing that they're chasing, they're unable to get. Extreme narcissistic people have a problem obtaining what they set out for because the spotlight is always on them. And they find it very, very hard to serve the marketplace in any way whatsoever. And when they do, they will always go on about the results that they got, not a client. You'll never see a testimonial. You'll never see something that they've served someone, and you'll never see anyone talking about them in a good way. So, and the funny thing is, if there's any narcissistic people listening to this, you won't even know that you are one because you're so narcissistic. So even that description, if you are one, you won't even know you are. You'll be going, yep, I totally agree. And you won't even know that you're that person. That's the funny thing about extreme narcissists. Anyway, someone who's an extreme altruist, the problem with that person who always puts other people first is they're always doing favors for people. They're the shoulders to cry on. They do all the favors. They look after the kids and the pets, and they kind of actively seek friendship. They seek approval, and they never want anything in return. Never want anything in return for their acts of kindness, ever. And the problem with the extreme altruist is they've got great ideas and always like to serve, but they find it impossible to ask for payment. They never have fair exchange. There's never a fair exchange going on. They struggle massively in business because even when they've got a great business idea, they fail to act on it because they cannot imagine anyone would want to pay for something that they create. And they're also useless at asking for the sale. There's a lot of people that don't like sales, but overly altruistic people, they don't even think they're worthy of the sale. So they're the kind of ones where their business is last as long as the freebies that they give away. and then it's game over. They'll do it for friends. Oh, you can have it for free. Blah, 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 blah. And, a bit like kind of vets. If you think, I see people get upset when they take their dog to the vet and they go, oh, but if they love animals, they should just do it for free. If they really love animals, not charge me this. Wrong. If you really, really love animals and you really care about animals, they're not the people that own the vets. They're the people that work at the vets. The people that own the vets are the business people that have been pushed to go to university, and they've gone through the whole process. Now they've done economics, now they've opened a business, and now they've gone to university, and they are in it for business, right? They might love animals, but they've got no problem serving and asking for that fair exchange because they've been trained to do so. The people that love animals are the staff. And the staff would probably make rubbish business owners because, as I say, for that same reason, they would just say, you can't afford the medicine, oh, we'll do it for free. And that wouldn't last too long. So the key is balance. If you want to master financial independence, you have to be a mixture of both. You have to be able to serve other people, you have to be able to provide value, and ask for the money, ask for the fair exchange. And that doesn't mean you have to have a business. If you have a job, it means you must be able to provide value to the company the best you can and be able to ask for the reward at the same time, the pay rise. Be able to justify your pay rise or your bonus. And you justify that by over-delivering in your industry, over-delivering in your company. So why did I say you need to be slightly more narcissistic in the early stages then? Well, I think that you need to be able to put yourself first for the first couple of years whilst you embark on your development in that particular field that you choose. Because to get good at anything, it requires a lot of discipline, a lot of focus, a lot of effort, and a lot of sacrifice. And in order to get where you want to be, you first need to get good at saying no to anything that doesn't align with your bigger mission. You'll have to sacrifice nights out, weekends partying, distractions, and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, you'll also find that there's people trying to pull you back into the norm. You're going to have to accept that in order to get to where you want to be, you will have to let a few people go. You just will. Especially the ones that always wanted to use you as a shoulder to cry on. The ones that thrive on doom and gloom. The ones that tell you, oh, you're fine the way you are, you should just be happy with life. Those are the people that will start to say things like, there's more to life than money, or you're so busy chasing your dream that you're forgetting what life's all about. You've heard those sayings. And as I said earlier, true wealth is being able to support and help your friends, family, community, whilst being able to experience life to the fullest. The wealthier you become, the more people you can support. Simple as that. Emotionally, financially. So the problem with these statements is that they come from people who think they aren't selfish, when in fact, they're being extremely selfish. They just don't see it. You know, the time will come when this person who's building the business, or if you're building your wealth and you're listening to this podcast, the time will come when you'll be on track to living your absolute best life. And when you get there, you will be able to support your parents should they need it, your friends should they need it, your chosen charity, your community, social enterprise. I just ran a party at my house last weekend. We raised £18,000 in half an hour. But if your parents were to become ill and need care, you'll be the one who's there to help. If your family member needs financial support, you'll be there. If you decide to raise children, you'll be in the best position to support them mentally and financially. And if you decide to raise money for a charity like I did, you'll be able to make a much bigger difference. The people who said you were being selfish will then be the ones who have nothing to offer. And whilst they've been busy with the mindset of there's more to life, they have unknowingly become more and more selfish in the long run. The people who say you're being selfish will have a real hard time soon when they witness you, right, being able to serve more people, help more people, provide more people. They might even cringe because, you know, maybe you're related and a family member becomes ill and you can support them and they can't. So I get that it's difficult, and it can be difficult to say no. It can be difficult to swim against the tide, and it can definitely be difficult to shut out friends and family and anyone else who kind of has that fixed mindset for the short term, but it's absolutely necessary if it means that you'll get to your goal quicker and in turn allow you to live your dream life and help more people. Right? The quicker you can do that, the more selfless you can become quicker. But it's always the early stages that's the hardest. You know, you're faced with doubt, dread, bitching, jealousy, spite, hate, all that kind of stuff. But you don't have time to worry about that. You're on Earth once. Don't you think you deserve to choose how you spend your time? When we first sent astronauts to the moon, the landing was like this infamous milestone for mankind, right? One small step for man. But the landing wasn't the hardest part. In fact, the whole journey on the way to the moon was a breeze compared to the takeoff. In order to make history, the hardest thing to do was to accelerate past the pull of gravity. The force, the effort, the power required to break that atmosphere was the most exhaustive part of that rocket's journey. And although that gravitational force is the thing that kept that astronaut's safe world in order, they knew that to achieve their mission, they had to surpass that barrier of comfort, if you like, and once they did, the rest was free sailing. So just to kind of summarize, you know, if anyone tries to tell you that because what you've told them isn't what they've heard, and they think you've lost your mind and they think you've lost your marbles, it's only doubt on their part. And if they try and say that all you're thinking about is money while you're trying to build wealth, understand that that person who's telling you that is normally playing a very, very small game. And when you just work on yourself first and get to where you want to be, and you get your mind right, you get your money game right, and you're free sailing like the astronauts, at that point, there's going to be a big transformation of opinions. And you're going to be the one who's able to serve and help and be the support to everyone around you, whilst that person's still trying to look out for themselves, and they'll soon be asking you how you did it. So that's really it for this week. I do want to mention one other thing. I featured on a podcast called The Leadership Vaccine, and I spoke about leadership, money, and how it helps you as a leader. So if you haven't listened to The Leadership Vaccine, please go over to The Leadership Vaccine on iTunes. Give it a little rating, because that's going to put me into a new audience, and I'd love it if you can go and give it a listen. Let me know what you think of that. I speak about things that I haven't really touched on in this podcast, so I'd love you to go and listen to that. Give it a little rating and a review as well. Help boost that podcast so that I can reach a broader audience, get this message out to as many people as possible. And lastly, this week, if you're listening to this in August 2019, we've got a big trading event on this week online, 19th, 20th, 21st and 22nd, and it's free to attend. You just need to go to tier1trading.com/trading-edge, and I'll see you guys there. So until then, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.